All right, harmonizing the gospel accounts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That is what we've been doing now for several Sundays here in the auditorium. Let me say something before I get too deep into the study this morning. I hope that you're not feeling like this is going too slowly. I'm a little reluctant about that, but keep in mind we're doing a study of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all at the same time. So it's not like just going through one of those books alone. We're going through them together and putting the events chronologically in order as we do such. I do hope that you're benefiting from this study. And again, if you're not familiar with our study here, we are studying the four gospel accounts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Last week we left off with Matthew chapter 5. We're getting ready for verse 33, but I will say some more on the verses preceding that. Right now we're talking about Jesus preaching the Sermon on the Mount and the explanation that Jesus gave in regard, or the explanation of Jesus' purpose in regard to the Old Testament. Last week we were talking about verses 31 and 32. It hath been said, "Whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced, committeth adultery." And we went over that last week. There is only one exception that God allows for divorce, and that is the cause of fornication. Any divorce for any other reason is not approved of God, and therefore if it is not approved of God and is unrighteous, all unrighteousness, John wrote, is sin. So it is a sin to divorce for any other cause than that of fornication. The guilty party being put away, the innocent party being free to remarry, as long as, of course, they marry scripturally. So with that being the case, marriage ends at death. We talked about that too. Romans 7, 1 through 3, I guess is the best way to do that, or one of the best ways, 2 and 3 in particular. But that's, again, the way that marriage was intended to be, was one man, one woman for life. Remember in the beginning, it was Adam and Eve. God saw the need for a male and a female to be together, not a male and a male, not a female and a female, but male and female. There's one other thing too, and I apologize to Norma because she had brought this up when we were studying it. Back in verses 27 and 28, I want to make sure I comment on something there too, because I forgot to do this when we were studying those verses. Back up there to verses 27 and 28 and reread those with me if you will. "Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart." Obviously, the idea here is, where does all sin originate? It originates in the heart of man. And if we're taking in those things into our heart and we're dwelling on them and we're concentrating on them, then yes, we basically are committing adultery in our hearts with that individual. We may not be physically doing the act, but our mind's already centered on it and thinking on it and lusting. Now, the thing that we didn't go over, and I know there's a lot that can be said there, but we covered a lot of that already. But if you'll remember carefully when we were talking about it there, that Norma brought up something about, I think she did, about the way that women contribute sometimes in what they did with that. And that was what she was bringing up, so I wanted to make sure I comment on that. Sometimes we, unfortunately, if we're not careful, we will give the idea that modesty is a female thing. And that's not true. Modesty is what all human beings should strive to be, is modest, male or female. There are immodest males, there are immodest females. But what I think was being said in regard to this, or what Norma's point was in regard to this, that sometimes a woman can dress in such a way that she contributes to the process of committing adultery in the heart of the man. Now, some will say, it's his fault. He ought not to lust after. I understand where you're coming from. But at the end of the day, we cannot excuse ourselves when what we are doing is causing something or contributing to someone else having a problem. Let me give you a for instance today. If a lady were to come up to me here in this building right now, and she were to be scantily dressed, and she put her arm around me, and she was standing here up next to me, grinning from ear to ear, how many of you would have the impression that that's not a very appropriate situation? Hands are going up.
I'd expect Shelley to go get her.
You know, that might make me feel... No, I'm kidding. In all seriousness, though, there are things that can appear in certain ways that are detrimental. Is that true? Well, sometimes the way we are dressed can do that too. Friends, I'm not excusing for one moment the man who's lusting after the woman in his heart. He's wrong. Please don't misunderstand me. He's wrong. David, when he lusted after Bathsheba, was wrong. But there is the argument that some people want to forget, and sometimes people want to excuse and try to say that Bathsheba didn't play a part in that. I don't totally agree with that. Bathsheba may have been thinking she was in private, but she wasn't, obviously. And it was in such a way that she could publicly be seen by David on that occasion. And therein is the problem. And again, some people disagree with that, and I don't want to beat up the wrong one there in the wrong way, but keep in mind today, the ladies who are contributing to this idea of a man lusting after her in his heart, she's not guiltless. And we need to understand that. She has played a part in this. Being immodest herself, she has sinned. And in the process of being immodest and sinning herself, she has contributed to someone else sinning. And friends, we cannot excuse ourselves and say, well, it's the other person's fault. It is, and ultimately, yes. But we also have to recognize we contribute, and sometimes that's the case. I know modesty is usually one that you preach. A lot of times people will say in spring or summer because of the fact, I've told Shelley for years now that the temperatures go up, the clothes come off. That's about the way it is nowadays. If you see the temperatures rising, you start seeing less and less clothing on individuals. And believe me, I get hot. And you may think, well, all right, Corey, what do you do? And I'm not the example of everything, obviously, but I'll give you for instance. When I mow my yard, I am not out there in shorts. I am not out there without a shirt on. I am not out there exposing myself the way that a lot of folks are doing, because it's wrong for a man to do that too. A man does not need to be any more immodest than a woman. So I wear a shirt and I wear appropriate clothing, and I'm not out there trying to make myself be seen by the neighborhood. I try to just make myself be as comfortable as I can. You know what? I've never passed out in this Georgia heat. Never have. Never have gotten to the point where it was so excruciating that I couldn't get up the next day. Never have. And one reason I say those things is because a lot of folks will make comments, oh, I just can't stand the heat. I can't do this. We can do a lot more sometimes than we think we can if we're willing to do it. And that's the problem sometimes, is people are unwilling to do it. So any comments or questions on that now that I open that back up? Anything at all?
Sometimes that's a heart problem, because we should love our brothers enough to help them to get to heaven and not cause them to suffer.
I'm always glad when a woman speaks up in a way in a class on those things. Because the reason I say that, some people may get the idea, well, the men are just picking on the women. No, we're not. Yes, it is a heart problem. If we love our brother the way we should, we don't want to contribute to him falling. So I agree with you. That's very good. Anything else? Yes, sir.
I've heard a lady say, it's not what I'm wearing, it's his filthy mind.
Yeah, that's right. And don't get me wrong, the man's wrong. But let me just put this out there for you, and I hope this makes sense. Friends, God made me a man. Does that make sense? And when I say that, here's what I'm going to say about that. A man, naturally speaking, is attracted to the female. That's natural. When you go back and you look at the way that God designed things, the woman for the man, he is naturally attracted to the female. There's nothing wrong with thinking a woman is attractive and a beautiful person, but it has to be limited to not grow and fester in one's heart to where it's lust and adultery in the heart. That's when it causes the problem. But yes, a lot of times the excuse is, well, it's his fault, and he's to blame for what he does. Yes, he is. But to ignore the fact that one has contributed to that and has sinned in so dressing as well, because again, if they're immodest, they're sinning already anyway. They can, and that goes a long way with their attitude. You're right. That goes back to the heart issue again. Anything else? All right, let's move on then to verse 33. That's where we get to start today with new. We're still in the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is still teaching. He said, again, ye have heard that it hath been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. All right? The issue here, verse 27, been said of them of old time, that had to do with the Old Testament. Verse 31, and it hath been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. That was Old Testament. Verse 33, again, ye have heard that it hath been said by them of old time. That's Old Testament. So Jesus is making the point that these people had misunderstood parts of the Old Testament. They were not living according to the old law the way they should have been. They had an understanding that they should not forswear themselves, but perform unto the Lord thine oaths. All right, let's go back, and I want you to see something in the book of Ecclesiastes. Run back over there. I think it's Ecclesiastes 5, but let me check. Yes, someone, if you will, pardon me, please read for us verses 1 through 5.
Ecclesiastes 5?
Yes, sir.
I have it. Walk prudently when you go to the house of God, and draw near to hear, rather than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know that they do evil. Do not be rash with your mouth, and let not your heart utter anything hastily before God. For God is in heaven, and you on earth. Therefore let your words be few, for a dream comes through much activity, and a fool's voice is known by his many words. When you go to make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you have vowed, Better not to vow than to vow and not pay.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. At the end of the day, if you say you're going to do something, what should you do? It really is that simple. And that's the problem I think some people have trouble with sometimes when they think this. Under the old law system, if you made a vow, you were expected to fulfill it. Simple as that. You gave your word, you said you'd do it, do it. And as it says there, it was better that thou shouldest not vow than that thou shouldest vow and not pay. In other words, if you're not willing to do it, you should have never opened your mouth to begin with. That's all it gets down to. If you're not willing to do what you said you would do, don't say it. Keep your mouth closed. And again, verse 2 there it says, be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. Be careful what you say, and be careful what you vow. All right, let's go over there, the end of Matthew 5 again. He says, it hath been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. And that's true. But there is a problem here. They thought that by swearing it made it more, what's the word I'm looking for? More power to it, was it? Binding, okay, yeah. The idea was it was more powerful if you swore to do it. Friends, let me ask you a question. And some of you already heard me do this before. If there were a stack of Bibles up here about yay high, and I put my right hand on them and I said, I swear that I'm going to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. What difference does it make if I did that on top of all those Bibles, or I stood right in front of you and said, I'm going to tell you the truth? Which one is better? Which one is worse? Look at what Jesus says. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. In other words, when you say yes, mean it. When you say no, mean it. Say what you mean what you say, live up to what you say. Or keep your mouth closed. It really is that simple. The problem is, James 3, the tongue is an unruly evil. And sometimes we don't control it as well as we should. But that's all Jesus was trying to get at here. They made such emphasis on about making sure you perform your oaths unto the Lord. You swore to do it. Well, yes, you need to fulfill what you said you would do, but the problem there in your thinking is you think it's more important to do that because you swore than if you just said it casually to somebody else. And the point is, you shouldn't have said it if you didn't mean it. If you're going to do it, do it. Yea, yea, nay, nay. How many of you remember a time, and I know that somewhat it's not that way now. How many of you can remember a time, though, when a handshake and a word was all you needed? I mean, that was all you needed. Somebody told you they were going to do something. They did it. And as the old adage comes, even if it cost them trouble or difficulty, they did it. They had made that affirmation to you, and they were going to fulfill it. Well, that's what Jesus is getting at. Quit worrying about the emphasis on swearing. That's not where all the emphasis should be placed. The emphasis should be placed on you being truthful and doing what you said. Yea, yea, nay, nay. It's not about swearing and doing. That doesn't make it all of a sudden more magical or anything of that nature. I like the way he says, neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. You reckon there wasn't no hair dyers back then? Sorry. Literally, though, we can't do that naturally, can we? We're not in control of that. When I moved down here, the picture was taken to put on the wall shortly after Shelley Brooke and I came, and I had a lot of darkness in this beard. I mean, it was nice, had some black still in it, and you look at it now, and if you, 5 years plus since then, look what y'all have done to me. No, I kid, not jest. In all seriousness, though, we can't change that. It's just a natural process. And at the end of the day, that's what he's getting at here, is quit making the idea of swearing by thy head, swearing by Jerusalem, swearing by the earth, swearing by the throne, swearing by... That doesn't make a difference. Just say yea, yea, and nay, nay. Be honest. That's what matters. Ye have heard that it hath been said, verse 38, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Is that in the old law? Let's see it. Let's go to Exodus 21:24. Because I think sometimes some people here misunderstand what's being taught in this area. Someone read Exodus 21, verse 24.
I've got it.
All right.
Eye in exchange for an eye, tooth in exchange for tooth, hand in exchange for a hand, foot in exchange for a foot.
All right.
That's the modern literal.
Let me ask you a question. Thank you for the reading. Let me ask you a question. What is he getting at there? What was the idea of all that? What was that? Fair judgment? Very good. Justice? Absolutely. I like that. Very, very good. Fair judgment. You know, there are some people today, I've seen somebody put this on a bumper sticker on their car. It said, an eye for an eye leaves both blind, or something like that's how they say. In other words, the idea was that that's the wrong way to be. Friends, justice is never wrong.
No, it's not.
Justice is never wrong. God is a just God. He always has been, He always will be, and He is going to be just. No matter what man does, God's going to be just. And yes, it had been said under the old law system, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Under the old law, that's exactly what it said. But the problem was, again, these people were getting parts of the old law and misapplying them. They were not living it the way that God wanted them to live it, so Jesus is correcting them on these things, and He's going to correct this too. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil. Is justice evil? No. Go over to Romans chapter 13, someone. Read verse 4 for us. Justice is not evil. We need to understand that. Who are the ones who have the ability here on earth to execute justice? All right, let's see Romans 13:4. Someone, if you will.
For He is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for He beareth not the sword in vain. For He is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil.
Who's he talking about there? Go back to the beginning of the chapter. The powers that be are ordained of God. It's civil government. He is, again, allowed by God, a minister, a servant of God, to execute wrath upon those who do evil. See the difference? Evil is one thing, justice is another. Is it wrong to punish when a man does wrong? And I wish our generation here coming up would understand that. We desperately need parents and grandparents that will discipline their children. They are beginning to believe nowadays that they have no standard by which they should be upheld. They can do anything they want, however they want, and everybody else ought to agree with them. There is nothing wrong with justice. The problem was, ye resist not evil. Instead of justice, guess what a lot of them wanted? There's a difference. What do you think it is? Okay, some of them might have wanted mercy, sure. But in regard to this, I think the idea that you resist not evil, these folks weren't just looking for justice. These folks were looking for revenge or just to get somebody back. That's not the attitude we're supposed to have. By the way, I know a preacher, and I'm not exaggerating this, and I'm not trying to just use it in a wrong way either, so if I am offending anyone with it, please forgive me. But I know a preacher whose son was murdered. Well, I say murdered, who was killed. I'll leave it at that. He was killed. Is it wrong then, at that moment in time, for the family of that preacher who died, is it wrong for them to seek justice? No. Now, would it have been wrong for one of them to have gone out and gotten revenge? Yes, there's a difference there. Who's the one who's going, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay. That's to Him, not us. But I say unto you that you resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. Does this literally mean that if somebody, and I want to ask you this question, if somebody gives you a 5-knuckle sandwich right across your nose, or excuse me, I had better say the cheek, right across your cheek, does that mean literally that he's wanting you to get back up and be hit again? I have a question for you. If you got back up and stood there in front of the man who just attacked you and you were willing to stand there and hold your ground, not fight back, not do revenge, not do evil in return for his evil, what more likely is going to happen?
He's going to stop and think about it.
She said he's going to kill you. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Now, is it possible? Yes. But I have a feeling a lot of the time you're going to calm that person down somewhat and the whole situation is going to change. I don't agree with you. The reason I say I don't agree with you is if you go back to the idea of what Paul wrote in regard to the church at Rome, he talked about when somebody's doing you evil, you do good to them and heaps coals of fire upon them. That's the idea. That's exactly it. When they're hitting you and doing evil to you or trying to hurt you and you get back up and you don't return it to them, that is powerful.
That's a different thing. When somebody hits you and you didn't hit him back, and somebody hit you back again, and somebody hit you back again, what do you think it's going to do?
Well, that's not what I'm talking about.
That's what I was hurting.
Friend, God doesn't expect you just to lay there and be a whooping boy either.
That's what I say. And you think that person is going to be sorry that they hit you?
Sometimes.
Sometimes 3 times, 4 times.
That's not what I'm talking about. You're taking it to an extreme I'm not talking about. God does not have a problem with you defending yourself. Keep that in mind. God does not have a problem with man defending himself in a situation. We're talking about someone who's looking to do you evil and you returning it back to him as evil. That's what we're talking about. That's wrong. Always has been. Is it ever right to do evil?
No.
That's all I'm getting at.
Never.
That's all I'm getting at. It's wrong to turn around and return evil for evil. Matter of fact, we're told that very plainly in the Scriptures that we're not to return evil for evil. God is not wanting us to act that way. So what is he saying here? I say unto you, but I say unto you, verse 39, that ye resist not evil. You are going to be tempted to go back and try to get revenge. You're going to be tempted to want to do somebody wrong that's done you wrong. He smites you on the right cheek. What are you supposed to do? Return it back to him? No. He's wrong for doing it. You don't get up and return it back to him. You don't do that. That's the whole thing. You don't return evil for evil. That's all he's talking about here. Not talking about, in fact, you can't defend yourself. Friend, if somebody's kicking you and you're down on the ground, cover up. If you have to fight back to get them off of you, God's not going... there's a difference there than what we're talking about right here. So please don't misunderstand me on that regard at all. But at the end of the day, don't return evil for evil. Whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. It'll have a powerful effect on him if you don't return evil to evil for him. It may not always happen the way we want it to. Somebody else may hit you on the other cheek. It very well may happen. But at the end of the day, revenge is not the answer. Never has been. And if any man will sue thee at the law and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. Do we have to give him everything we have? Is that what Jesus is teaching? No. This man is trying to take advantage of you. This man is trying to take something that is yours, that you have worked for, that you have labored for, that you have earned. He's trying to take it away from you. If you turn around and show him that you're willing to be friendly to him, you're not willing to try to take something from him, but you're willing to offer to him and give to him to help him, what a difference it is. Friend, you'll destroy the arguments of some people with love and kindness. You will change the demeanor and the attitude of some people with love and kindness. Is it 100% all the time? No. But it is a lot. The reason that it doesn't happen is because a lot of times people don't do what they need to do. A lot of times people return evil for evil. And they think that's justice, and it's not. Yes, sir.
Other people may see what you're doing, too.
Absolutely. Your impact on them can be a huge influence. By the way, did Jesus return evil for evil, or did he stay on the cross and let him kill him? Let me ask you that question again. Did Jesus return evil for evil, or did he stay on the cross and let them kill him? Well, I say let them. He gave up the ghost. I need to understand. He laid down his life. But at the end of the day, did Jesus return their evil to their evil?
And Corey, on that note, how many people saw that and understood that, and it changed, I don't know, 1, 2, 3? We know the soldiers said surely this was.
Brother, it's changing people today. 2,000 years later, the fact he didn't return evil for evil is still changing the hearts of men today. But yes, back then, literally, the ones who visually saw it. Absolutely. Our Lord did not return evil for evil. He let them go ahead and do the evil they were doing, but he didn't return it back to them. Friend, I would love for evil not to exist in this world, but the reality is, as long as there's man on this earth and the temptation to sin, evil will be here. How we react to it is what Jesus is teaching here. If a man's wanting to do you harm and do evil to you, you don't return it back to him. That's all he's getting at here. When you come up to verse 41, and whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. What are you willing to do there? What do we often say? You're willing to go the extra mile, second mile, same idea. Why? Because you're willing to do above and beyond what needs to be done to help this person. Well, that's what he's talking about here in regard to smiting you on one cheek and turning him to the other. You're willing to go above and beyond to make it right. You're not trying to do that which is wrong. You're doing above and beyond to make it right. When he sues you for your coat, you let him have the cloak also. You're going above and beyond to do that which is right, not doing evil to him. He wants you to go a mile with him. You go twain. You go above and beyond. You see what he's trying to get across here? These people have, it all goes back to verse 38 again. Remember, they were misapplying that verse. Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. They were misapplying it. They weren't teaching justice. They were teaching revenge. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth wasn't wrong if you did it right. But if you were executing revenge, you were rendering evil for evil, you were wrong. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away. You defeat evil with good. That's really what he's getting at. Instead of you turning around and being evil to someone who's been evil to you, you be good. You do that which is right, no matter what. That's what he's talking about. Now, people have tried to express this in other ways, but at the end of the day, friends, that's really all it is. Any questions down through verse 42?
Just want to make a comment.
Absolutely.
Like here, in my judgment, that there's two different individuals involved here. One is an individual that does all of this on you. You don't even know who he is.
May not, right?
And the other seems like it is a friend that these are things that we should work out together.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm not sure about the two, but you go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just saying that seems, because what he says, love your neighbor, and then hate your neighbor or hate your enemy is what.
Right. No, that's the next one on the list, as a matter of fact. Right?
It just seems. Now, if it's someone that is an unknown individual to you, whatever you have to do is to defend yourself. That's the way I look at it. But now, friend, you need to do it a little different way.
Okay.
That's kind of the idea I have.
Well, I don't want anyone left with the idea this morning that Corey said you can't defend yourself. That's not what I'm teaching. God does not say we cannot defend ourselves. But the issue again is if they're trying to do you wrong, it doesn't make it right for you to do wrong. There's a difference in justice and rendering evil for evil. There's a huge difference in the two. I have no problem with justice. A man kills a person, they're committed to death, they get the death penalty, and they're sent to death row. Is it wrong for that person to be put to death? No.
There's a difference between getting even and justice.
That's it. I agree with you. And we're not wanting the idea of trying to, quote, get even. That's just doing the idea again of trying to, he's done evil to me, I'll do it to him. That's not what God wants. Now, verse 43 continues this idea. He's built on the Old Testament principles of verse 27 of adultery and divorce, verse 31. He's dealt with the idea of swearing with the Old Testament, verse 33. He's now dealt with an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth and how they were misapplying that as well. And now he's going to really get down to the heart of the matter of really what a lot of it is. Ye have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. What is the first commandment that is the greatest of all? Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, with all thy strength. That's the first and great commandment, right? Love for God above anything else. What's the second that's like unto it? Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So is it right for them to understand that they were to love neighbor? Yes. But just because you were told to love neighbor, did that mean you had to hate your enemy? That's right. It says, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy, but I say unto you, love your enemies. Where did you ever find in the Old Testament, where exactly is that idea that God wants us to hate? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about hating sin. God hates certain things. I'm talking about hating a man just for the sake because he's a man. Just for the sake that he doesn't look like me, he doesn't talk like me, he doesn't walk like me, he doesn't dress like me, he doesn't... Where is that found in the Bible? Who is my neighbor? Now, I'm not Mr. Rogers. But our neighbors are not just the persons living next door to us. Who was neighbor to the one that was attacked and left for dead, the Samaritan? He had no dealing with the Jews usually. But he was a neighbor to that man when he was hurt. If we are to love our neighbors, and our neighbors are pretty much everybody, guess what? That limits how many real enemies we have, doesn't it? Oh, we have enemies. There's no doubt about it. There are enemies of the church. There are enemies of the cross. There are enemies of the Lord. The moment you become a Christian, you have enemies. You can guarantee it. The number one is Satan. You have enemies. But again, they were implying it that since thou shalt love thy neighbor, it was okay to hate thine enemy. He said, but I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. Now, think about what we just studied. The idea again of this eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and they were thinking that that meant you could go ahead and get back at somebody and render evil to them for evil. He's making it clear here, no, you don't. You bless them that curse you. They're doing you wrong, you do right. Look at the difference. They're cursing you, you bless them. One's evil, one's not. Do good to them that hate you. They hate you, what should you do to them? Love them. As I was trying to make the point earlier in regard to someone smiting you on the cheek, when you get back up and you stand there and you don't hit him back, and you don't turn around and try to start more of it and it causes more of a fight, more evil, you're going to have a dramatic impact on that person standing across from you. You're going to squash evil with good. Look at it carefully there. Bless them that curse you. Why? If what I'm teaching is wrong, why? I'm asking a fair question. If that is incorrect in what I'm saying here about the rendering evil for evil, why is he telling them to bless them that curse them and do good to them that hate you and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you? That's exactly what he's teaching. They do evil to you, you do good to them.
They have a soul that needs to be won, not lost.
That's it. Their soul's just as valuable as mine. And I say that because I don't want anyone, I think some might have misunderstood earlier and thought I was teaching something I wasn't. I don't want that impression left. Their idea, again, is that which is wrong, you don't do it. You do, even if it's hard to do, you do that which is good. Even when they smite you, you do that which is good. By the way, back to our Lord again. Did they smite him? Did he return it? Who's my great example? They literally slapped him across the face, friends. They literally platted a crown of thorns on his head and beat it down with a reed. Did he return any of it? None of it. Again, I'm not saying God does not want us to defend ourselves, but there are a lot of times where a goodness can overcome the evil if we'll just do it.
Sometimes we don't understand the people that may hate us don't understand why they hate us.
Well, some of them, that's just all they've ever been taught. I mean, that's from the time that they knew how to do a June bug, that's all they've ever been told. I mean, there are some people today that hate America just because it's America. I'm being honest. They've always been told America is wrong, America is evil, and that's all they've ever heard. Not everybody in America is evil.
Some people in America, they hate the other folks.
That's true too. That's good. And you're right. It goes the other way. There are some people who, because they're not Americans, they hate them.
They do hate them.
That's true. They do. And that's not the way to be either. Both of them's wrong. So what do? Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. And notice what next is said. Let me apply it this way. If you don't bless them that curse you, if you don't do good to them that hate you, and you don't pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, you cannot be the children of the Father. You say, Corey, how do you say that? Because if you will do all those things, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. Which the other way around, if you won't do it, you can't be a child of the Father. Because the Father will not accept that behavior. And I can't overemphasize Jesus. The ultimate evil being done to him. And he never rendered any back. And that's our example.
Well, he died for our sins.
Yes, he did.
And that's what I'm saying, he is God.
But he was man too at the time.
But he was a man that he knew he had to die for the people. And so I don't think myself I think myself as a Christian. But if somebody offended me and tell me that I am not good because my color of my skin or my heritage, I'm going to tell him to look yourself.
Well, let me help this for a moment. I've been saying it for the last several minutes. You don't render evil for evil, you do that which is good, right? If you teach someone who's doing evil to you that which is good, that's fine. Make sure you're not doing it in the wrong attitude, though. Make sure the way you're presenting it and the way you are behaving yourself is not wrong itself. If someone's being evil because of someone's skin color or nationality or something like that, is it right for us to try to teach them the error of their ways? Yes. But you know what's wrong about it? If we turn around and do it in a hateful and evil way. We have to be careful too. Let me ask you a question, Isabel. Is it ever right to do that which is wrong?
No.
Okay. Would it be wrong for you to just be mean and hateful to someone?
No. But I don't like for people to be hateful for me.
No, and I don't either. I don't think the Lord did. But He still didn't give back and retaliate. He didn't retaliate back.
I don't retaliate it, but I just don't, like I said, I do not want it to be with that person.
Do two wrongs make a right? Is the person wrong that is being offensive towards you? Absolutely. Is it just as wrong, though, for you to turn around and be offensive back to them or hateful to them? Yes.
We just have to make sure what we say it with the right attitude.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with teaching them the error that they're doing, but do it in the right mannerism, speaking the truth in love.
Keeping coals of fire on.
That's right. And if you do that which is good, that's the whole point again. You're going to heap those coals of fire on his head. The problem a lot of people have today is they're not willing to do that. They have the attitude, well, they did it to me, I'm going to do it to them. That's not the answer. Just because they've done it to us does not give us free license to do it to them. As a matter of fact, again, our perfect example is Jesus. Yes, He was God, but He was also a man, and He did not retaliate. He is our perfect example. I hope I'm not coming across too rough, too strong, but I want to make sure we're confused on anything. I want to help. And I don't want to hurt you in any way. I want to help. But I don't totally agree with the idea that we can be wrong in our mannerisms back to them and still be okay. I don't think that's right. Because then we're the ones who are doing which is wrong. For He maketh His sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. Yes, He does. Does God bless everybody in some ways? Yes. Are there certain blessings that only certain people have? Yes. We're going to touch on that next hour in the worship hour. But He does have some blessings that He bestows upon everybody, regardless of good and evil. Regardless if they do right. Now, if God can do that which is good to those who've done evil to Him, guess what we're supposed to do? That's the whole point. God still causes it to rain on the unjust. They do terrible. He blesses them. People do us wrong, talk to us wrong, treat us wrong. We bless them. We don't do evil to them. That's every bit of what He's getting at. And if God will do that to the ones who hate Him and despise Him and curse Him and do all evil and manner things against Him, and He still blesses them, that's what we're supposed to do. He causes it to rain on the just and the unjust. He blesses them anyway. Friend, I'm going to love them whether they want me to or not. Now that sounds bad, I know, but I'm going to love them whether they want me to or not. Some of them there are some people who, and what I mean by that, there are some people who want you to get so mad that you lose your temper. There are some people who want you to get so upset that you end up doing wrong after they've done it. They want you to do that. I'm going to love them anyway. You know what's going to happen a lot of times? I fail. If you think I'm standing up here and tell you I've always handled it perfectly every time, you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I haven't always done it perfectly either, but I need to be getting better at it, and I need to be putting it into practice, and I need to be improving on it, and I cannot excuse it away and act like it's okay for me to do evil when God doesn't. They do evil in Him, they curse Him, they do all kinds of things against Him. He still sends the sun to rise on them. He still sends the rain to fall on them. And if He can bless those who do evil, guess what I can do? I can do it too. I have to stop right there. I hate having to stop right there because we're right at the end of it almost. I hope today was helpful, and I'm sorry if there's any confusion. I don't want there to be. Anything else before we dismiss? I hope not.